Hello and welcome to another Flashpoint Q&A here on the Flashpoint channel. As everybody is filtering in to ask your questions in Twitch chat, we can start off with a fun topic of conversation and your guys' impression of it, because it's pretty big news with Nitro leaving Team Liquid. So what are the first thoughts that you guys have about Nitro being a free agent right now?
James, go ahead.
You're very quiet, Nifty. You're very quiet.
Quiet? Is that any better?
No.
No, okay.
James, you can talk about it though. Nope. And
We can't
James'
hear you,
mic doesn't
James.
work. So we've got quiet Nifty
Okay,
and
hang on, I'm working on it. Here we go.
eventually.
Is that any better?
No.
It's the same volume for some reason. Go into Discord itself and just go on the audio thing and make sure the volume input is up. Make sure the input's on your mic.
Yeah, my input is on 100.
You know, guys, you thought that the Flashpoint audio issues were done, but they're just ongoing and perpetual.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
We can.
All right. Yeah. So Nitro being available, I think it's super interesting because obviously he's played at the top for a long time. And, being around him and talking to him a few times personally, I think he's really mature. So there's no way he would not be an asset on any team he'd join, right? Like, he's played both roles as a star player and as more of like the leader type guy. So I think he has so many things to give any team. It's just up to if he wants to do that, right? Like, he's been playing straight for years on end, right? He might want a little bit of time off, but who knows? We'll see. I think it's up to him, right? Like, he's obviously going to be wanted.
Okay, I hope my volume's better. Is it?
It's
No.
the same.
Damn. Is it like you can't make out anything I'm saying or what?
It's just low. Like if you max it out, is it all right, Monty?
Let me try and max it out.
Try and
guys.
put it in the highest you can in Discord.
Yeah,
see
let me
if it's,
just
like,
fix it
tolerable.
on Discord
I
real
had to
quick.
switch out mics because previous headsets kind of crap, but it broke.
I tried to turn him up, but I think it's still super soft.
Hello.
Yeah.
Should I just like talk really loud? Does it help if I talk really loud?
No, actually, nothing is helping. I'm not sure. Even me turning up your volume to double doesn't help. So.
Okay, interesting.
Well, while Nifty tries to figure this
Maybe
out.
call in on your phone or something. Could
Yeah,
do that instead.
Yeah.
Because then you can just hold the mic close to yourself. I'm sure it'll be decent.
Yeah, I could probably use. I have AirPods right here with me, so it might work. That's a good idea.
All right. Thorin, any thoughts on the...
Yeah, I've got loads of
Nitro?
thoughts. Right. Basically, I'll probably do a video on this separately, but the gist of it is this. Actually, I agree with James. It's weird because statistically, like, Nitro definitely should have been cut. Like, he was having some really bad players, especially the last year or so, I'd say. Like, basically, after Liquid stopped being the best team in the world, he was one of the players who noticeably really heavily dropped off. So he already was someone on the table to be removed. But the key thing to me is this. Only in the context of Team Liquid. And that's because Team Liquid had such an incredible roster of insanely good players that, like I said this before, to me, even the results they've had online now are unacceptable. They haven't won any of these tournaments except that first one. Like, they're supposed to just win all this shit. That's how good their lineup is. So to me, that's an example of a roster where, like, you have to expect the absolute best. But for almost any team other than a Team Liquid level, once you drop down to any of the other teams, there are a lot of teams that could use a player like Nitro. Because as James said, he isn't just an in-game leader. In fact, you could even argue that might not even be his biggest strength. That was just what he's very good at a year or two ago. Like, in the early days, he was one of the best entries we had. He was one of the more skilled players in NA. He's even been obviously a hybrid AWPer when he's in Liquid. I feel like this is a guy where he should really have his inbox just flooded with offers, either to be an in-game leader and start another project, or to just be like, reinvent your game. Like, maybe you want to go and just be a star player in fucking Gen G or something. I don't know what team it would be, but there's plenty of teams I think could use this guy. Also, has a very easy to get along with personality.
Yeah. Yeah,
Can you
I
guys see
definitely
me?
agree with
Hear
that.
me?
We can hear
We
you.
can hear better.
We can't see you.
You can't see me? Okay, guys, we're gonna have to go into a cam. Sorry.
The audio's better, though. The audio's
The audio's better.
Okay.
We're
Okay,
getting
Just still
there.
like this, mate. Just still like this. The audio's better. Do you have some thoughts, Nifty?
Yeah. Okay. So where were we? We were just talking about Nitro, right?
Yes. Being removed from TL.
Yeah. So that's very interesting, because he's been there for so long, and it's really tough, I think, for somebody in his position right now. to really kind of decide what he wants to do. I'm sure that like plenty of offers are going to come his way, but at the same time, it's like really somebody in his spot, like you kind of got to decide like, okay, do I want to like hang out and just, kind of relax for a little while, take a step back from all the competing that I've done so constantly for the last 5 years, being a part of Team Liquid, or do I jump right back into it? You always just wonder like where are the motivation levels at? Maybe does he want to explore Valorant? There's honestly a lot of options for him, like right now. So that's very intriguing just for somebody in his position, even when you look at it from the outside. But as far as a player, like he does have that well-roundedness that not everyone has been able to achieve in their career, despite him playing all the different roles. And it's really interesting because I always thought that one of his most impactful roles was not necessarily leading, but just being a rifler. Just being one of those riflers that maybe goes in, maybe he's an entry, or maybe he goes in straight second or third, and he just focuses on letting that rifle skill shine. I always thought he was one of the most talented riflers in North America.
Yes.
So I'd really love to see him like find a place that he's comfortable in, and maybe he doesn't try to have to like take on all these different roles. Maybe he just slots right into a team, and he kind of just lets all of that skill, the talent, and experience kind of just unfold before him. I'd really like to see that for somebody like Nitro. Yeah, we've always had like a nice and friendly relationship. So, I want to see him do the best he can.
I would echo that sentiment, by the way. If I had my choice, he wouldn't just go and be an IGL for a worse team than Team Liquid. He'd go and do what Nifty's saying here and just go back to what he used to be and try and just be the best, more skilled player he could be. Because I feel like that'd be such an interesting dynamic to put in the NA scene right now.
Absolutely.
To follow this up, what are your guys' thoughts on the rumors that Grim might be replacing him coming in? He's been one of the players that we've been talking about a lot as an up and coming NA talent over the past couple of months. What do you think this does to Team Liquid's roster, if it happens?
You want to go first?
No, go ahead, James. Go ahead.
I think it's going to be interesting for Grim. I think it's going to put him on display because he's going to be surrounded by people who know what they like to do. So he might not get to do exactly what he likes to do, right? So we're actually going to get to see that, right? Because on old teams he's been on, he probably gets more of his pick of the litter. I think this kind of goes back to Nitro, where like you could see that Nick had to do things that he probably didn't want to do, like opping and IGLing, and right, like so that's probably why his stats suffered towards the end. Obviously, it's going to be overly simplified, and there's more nuance to it. But I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of like where they put Grim. Is Stewie going to be on the primary op? Stewie's going to be calling the whole time, and I think it'll take like a few months to shake out if he actually does go in the roster, right? Because we don't know if that's for sure yet. So
I think it's a really interesting situation, just because it's kind of just like, it's weird. Kind of like how I said, like with Nitro, it's like I always saw him as being more impactful just being a rifler, right? But for the time that he was on Team Liquid, he did so great, leading so many great talented players that came out of this region, as part of that team. And even when he had like Simple on the team and everything, like he did really like a great job. I mean, it's very hard to handle all those different personalities and all those different levels of skill, and still be able to lead them to championships, a Grand Slam win, all those things. I mean, those are incredible accolades. But I think what it feels like with Team Liquid, right now is like, would they be still very good if they picked up Grim? Absolutely. Is it what they need? Nobody knows, right? But it's weird. Their roles have always been kind of like all over the place. It's like, they have three players, that can kind of do whatever. Stewie's always been kind of like a whatever. Naf can do whatever. Nitro played that same role. I mean, literally everyone can do it. So it's always so awkward, I think. But I think either way, it's going to work out for Grim. Like if Grim were to join Team Liquid, or any kind of like up and coming NA player to slot into a team like that, just because I can kind of compare it to the way that when we picked up Sam, and he joined our team, he joined a team of not really like a whole bunch of different like veterans that are super skilled, and top of their class kind of thing, some of the best players in NA. And he wasn't really able to thrive with us. But as soon as you kind of put him on Gen G, and now he's playing with like automatic, and he's got DAPS, and he's got like all of this veterancy around him, you know, and he's kind of like the rookie player, you know, he excelled in that situation. And he's become much better player, a more well-rounded player, you know, and I kind of put Grim in that same kind of situation, and I see him maybe thriving in the same kind of way. You know, but Grim is extremely skilled, and he seems like he's got a great head on his shoulders as well. So I think it's just going to be up for him wherever he goes, whether he goes to Team Liquid or not.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty complicated move for me because while on the one hand, in the online era where you can only watch online games, yeah, Grim's inarguably one of the best like new prospects in the scene. Basically, outside of Team Liquid and EG, he'd be one of the top performers. But no one knows what he's going to be like if you throw him into like IEM fucking Katowice or ESL1 Cologne next year if those lands happen, and he has to play against some like Na'Vi or some really next level team that like you might have no experience against on land. So I do feel like it's a big gamble to basically just take someone who at the moment you're just taking for online form. They haven't worked their way up through the offline scene, as it were. So I think that's a big gamble. I also think actually the point that Nifty made there is a very key one, which is this definitely is not like someone surgically looked at the team and was like, right, how do I diagnose the problem? And is this the solution? They're just trying to get another good player. Like they're just getting another good fragger, and then they're going to have to organize the team however they do. Like I'm not someone who's ever followed the sport of baseball, but I'll use an analogy from baseball, so you'll see my ignorance here, which is that someone once told me that one of the most ridiculous examples of like the Yankees' approach to baseball, where they just try to buy all the best players, was that they did buy Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez, because basically I was told they're basically like two of the best players ever at one position, and so they just had one of them just play the other one. They didn't want them to play like third base or something, like whatever the other position is instead of shortstop. And so the logic is like you only need one of those guys. If anything, why don't you just hire the other guy from the other position? That's what Team Liquid is like. Like in Team Liquid, one of the reason why Twist's numbers fell off a cliff is because at one point he was just being the lurker. Meanwhile, this guy, like in any other team, would be like the best entry player in the world or something. So I feel like that's always a problem they've had in this iteration of Team Liquid, is they have so much talent. I still think they have the craziest roster in the world. Like I don't even care if you're talking Na'Vi, anything. This is a better roster. But the problem is, some of those other rosters, it makes more sense what the roles would be. In Team Liquid, I feel like they kind of just, whoever's playing well gets to have some say in what their role is. So I feel like the reason Twists gets moved to another role is if NAF's playing better, for example. I feel like they're more that sort of a team. So I don't actually know personally if they still have figured out whatever it was that ails them. I still think they've probably got similar problems. But I do agree, in terms of raw fragging power, Grim looks like a pretty good pickup at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch Grim play, like from his POV in game, it looks absolutely unreal. Like it literally looks like aimbot. So I'd be really surprised if he doesn't succeed.
Yeah, it's like when I look at Team Liquid's roster, you know, even like for when they had Nitro, it's like I think it's a sick roster, maybe the sickest roster ever, kind of like you were saying, Thorin, for like an ideal universe. But I think in
like if everyone could play 10 out of 10 level, their roster just wins, right? Yeah.
Right. It's like no matter your role or what type of player you are, you're just, imagine you're all just rotating around every map that you're playing, and your chemistry is just so perfect that everyone can slot in everywhere and everything works. You know, I think in an ideal universe that really works for them. But I think the reason why like lesser rosters succeed more than they do is because it's just clear. You know, everyone's clear on what they have to do, and no one's trying to exceed each other. You know, and it's just kind of like, it's much more role based. There's much more trust in each other. And I'm sure that like Team Liquid players, they might like listen to something like this, like, wow, like he's talking out of his ass. But, you know, from outside the jar, that's what it looks like. You know, these are the kind of things that we can notice. You know, inside the jar, it may look a lot different. But
it's like that example I gave of Twists, dude. It's like, put it this way, here's the obvious example. In Vitality, do you imagine they've ever had a discussion where they all sat around and thought, should we take Ziwu off the AWP? Like that discussion never happened. That was never even said once ever. But I'm giving you an example here where they've taken Twists, one of the sickest aimers ever, and made him like the semi-lurk guy, just play on his own on the other side of the map. Like that. The idea that's even like a thing you're toying with shows that like you have a very different philosophy to the game than most teams. Because most teams, like the phrase I'd use in Nifty is like most teams are streamlined. It's like you kind of know who should be the player who carries on this part of the map, or who should be the entry player. Or like it just makes sense in most teams because this player is just way better than this other player. The problem they have is they have like the abundance of riches, though. They have too many good players. And I tell you, I want to know what you guys think, actually. Sometimes I feel like that is the flaw. Sometimes I feel like they keep trying to recruit the next Ziwu type player when what they really needed was some player who probably isn't that sick in terms of just fragging, but just like some genius, like supportive element or something. I don't know who it would be. That's the tough part. Those are very thin on the ground and they tend to be in all the best teams, Zipniks, etc. But like, I feel like that's the sort of player I always thought they needed if they wanted to be like final form, you know. I don't know who that would be though. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think you put it in a great way, you know, just streamlined rosters. And, you know, it's the abundance of riches. I like the way you put that as well. You know, because sometimes, you know, you have that and you don't know what to do with it. You know, or sometimes it can be difficult. You know, everyone's like, I can do it. You know,
oh, no, Team Liquid's on some ridiculous, like, first world problems level shit. Like, Matt, that's why I give the Yankees example. They're like, so who should I have for shortstop this year? It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, we're trying to build a normal team here and you're just deciding that shit. How do you take one from someone else, you greedy little cunt? Give it back.
All right, let's start taking some questions from Twitch chat.
Dude, imagine if I actually just went dark one day and just woke up and went like full evil socialist. I come on shows like this, start arguing that Team Liquid should share players among the scene. Everyone should get a Team Liquid player. Like, you know, we should dissolve the talent now. I might just do it. Fuck y'all. I'm going dark now.
I mean, that eventuality would probably work very well for our Flashpoint partner team, so I'm all for it, personally. Anyway, I'll just go ahead and wade into this minefield. We do try and you know, talk about issues head on with you guys and be transparent. So here's an interesting topic. Thoughts on today's controversial sponsorships elsewhere in esports? Are there lines that Flashpoint won't cross even if it needs money to operate? Oh man. So first off, I didn't even know that this planned city existed before I woke up this morning. So I'm still, I don't have the most information on what exactly it is or what this sponsorship entails for entities in both Counter-Strike and League of Legends. So I don't really feel like I'm equipped to comment on that particular thing.
The more interesting part is the Flashpoint side of it. Like, basically, here's the question, Monty, is would we take sponsorship from these people? Now, first of all, unfortunately, we actually can't directly answer that, me and Monty, because we don't decide the sponsorships and we're not involved in the financial side. But where we would have a say is if we chose to keep working for the company. So what I would say is this. I suspect, I haven't had a discussion with people, that actually Flashpoint wouldn't partner with companies like this. That's my suspicion. Surprised. And I'm certainly not, like, it's not something I've ever sat and thought about. But I don't think even if it happened, let me think, actually. I'd have to think very carefully about whether I would leave over something like that, though, because one of the problems I have with a lot of these topics is it's easy to make the distinction when it's one like this because it's a very glaring one. Like, there's not very degrees of separation between the top of their country and this project. But I'm not exaggerating when I say that, like, fucking ice cream companies are basically owned by the most evil people in the world. If you look out, don't realize it. You guys think there's some cute brands that are sponsoring that are also evil. So
I think this is like a hugely interesting topic, obviously. And to get into it, I think we'd have to take it on kind of a sponsor by sponsor basis and see like what that means. And I think it's, you know, when we're talking about governments or multinational corporations, it's extremely complicated. So I'm just going to say it's very difficult to answer that question. And I don't even feel like I'm in a good place to opine about what's going on today. Cause like, I literally didn't even know that this thing existed before this morning. So I really have no idea of like the implications of it or anything like that. But I do think, like, weirdly, one of the positive takeaways of this is like, look how big esports has gotten that we're actually having these conversations, right? Like, you know, we're in a unique point in the industry.
Wait a minute, you've just done a full Moses there. Like, Moses at one point in time for like a month kept doing talk shows where he kept going like, and then this is really bad. But here's why that's a good thing. And everyone was like, why are you doing this weirdly? Why are you always trying to spin the reverse angle? So your version is like, you know what? Some people might think it's bad that esports is funded by Dr. Evil and he plans to wipe out the human race. But all I'm going to say is we got Dr. Evil's attention. You know, we're a player in the game, boys.
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it is.
No, I know what you mean.
Is an observation that like the industry is now big enough to attract this attention. Yeah. I think that's
as an omen. It suggests that esports is pretty vital in the world, basically.
Yeah, and so like. Again, guys, like these are such complicated issues that it's really hard to get into unless we had specifics for Flashpoint itself about.
I can't say I would personally advise Flashpoint don't do a sponsorship like this or partnership. I personally think when it's as blatant as this, you probably should not be involved with those companies. For me, the one thing I would say on this whole topic though is you shit out of luck if you virtue signaled super hard for the last few years and painted yourself into a corner, because now you might actually have to live up to those principles when it affects your pocketbook. And if you don't, you never had them, you were full of shit and you're a fraud. Live with that.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
Indeed.
Like for me,
luckily I didn't do that for years, so I'm cool. So I'm fine, you know.
Indeed.
It's really tough, especially unless you're on the inside, you know, and you're working as part of that. I think it's really, really hard to like look at it, you know, even specifically. I think you have to keep a really general distance, you know, and kind of like say things or ask questions like, you know, what are your goals, you know, like as a company, you know, to adopt a sponsor like that, you know, and you know, kind of like what are your goals? What are your principles, your ethics? What do you believe in, you know? To push your company in a direction to where you have a sponsor of maybe some controversial topic, you know, because who knows, maybe it benefits in some way for them, you know, maybe it's to push them to a different level or something, you know. I think it's really difficult to know, you know, exactly what's going on, you know, unless there's people on the inside that speak to, you know, X, Y, and Z, right, and they kind of share like, oh yeah, this probably wasn't but I don't know. I don't have too much to say on it just because it's just weird. It's not my field anyway.
It's not really our ballpark, but like I guess whenever somebody sponsors you, they have some kind of influence or impact on decision making, whether it be a shred or a larger amount. And then the longer that you're sponsored by them, the longer that relationship is, and the more that's going to proliferate. So that's all, you know. That's the only way I would look at it.
I you know, for me, like I worked with like Blast a couple times and they were always so great to me, you know, so great to me, Nicholas and everyone who worked over there. And it's like if I'm in a position where I have a company and, you know, we're looking to get sponsors, and it's like I ask myself first, like what do I believe in and what direction do I want my company to go in, and what kind of things do I want to have associated with myself, you know. It's like does this sponsor match that? If it doesn't, then it's probably not working out with my morals, you know, or what I believe in, and is it good for me and everyone involved, you know. Is it going to do good things, you know. I just hope that whatever has gone on there, that it is good for them, and it lines up with what they believe in, and hopefully it puts them in a more direction, or in a better direction that they're comfortable with.
And I will say, guys, that in general, the Middle East is going to be a huge growth market for esports. We've already seen events like Blast be held in Bahrain. The Saudi Arabian government has been highly active in having tournaments in Saudi Arabia. In fact, I know there have been massive Overwatch tournaments with huge prize pools in Saudi Arabia. Clearly, they are interested in making a push with this new construction project to have esports be a part of this kind of vision of their city. You know, we're going to see more, is what I'm saying, across the region. Mm-hmm. And there is a huge amount of investment interest there. So this isn't a one-off, guys. I would say that this has been a long time coming, and we're just, I would say, like, get used to it, you know, regardless.
Yeah, I actually think as time goes on, like, we'll see a lot of esports growth in really weird parts of the world that we wouldn't expect.
Yeah, India is another one. Like, there are these huge markets, right? And especially like places that really want to push kind of this bleeding edge technological image, esports is a natural fit for that. So it's an interesting time, to be sure.
I'd also just like to say, how does it feel, Americans, having other countries attempt to impose their philosophical ideologies and opinions on you? How does that feel? And you know what? You have to sit there and eat it and say, yes, sir, can I have some more? Because they have the money. Oh, delicious. Oh, this fucking Schadenfreude is delicious. I'm not from America, by the way. I have no part in your crimes. Listen, I think I had my own shit years ago, but that was a while back. There was no TV back then. You all never saw it, so sucks, doesn't it? Sucks. Now you know what it was like for the rest of the world.
All right.
Must be nice.
Elaborate
There
for
we
some
go.
of the viewers in terms of what you mean by that.
Nah, I don't think I will.
No?
Let's leave it at that.
All right, guys, we're not going to ask Nifty questions about unannounced envy rumors, okay? So we're not
That
going to do
seemed like
that.
an indirect way to ask me that question.
No, we're not. Don't. I'm
I've
just
got a
letting him know
question,
that's not
though.
going to happen.
Are there actually is Envy a team actively trying to make roster moves?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I mean, here's the thing. Envy, Hastro, you've spoken with Hastro, you know, probably a handful of times. You know, he really does care, you know, where all of his teams are. You know, he's put a lot of focus into the Dallas Field, Dallas Empire, and all of their successes. Every team has their own struggle. Even the Dallas Empire, who is doing phenomenally well. They win championships. You know, they make finals, everything. You know, and he wants the best for us too. You know, and him being in that CEO role, which now he is no longer, that allows him to be way more involved with us, you know, constantly having meetings with us. How can we do things better, right? How, you know, he's basically constantly asking the question of how can we win? How can we be better? What do we need to do? What do you need from me? You know, things like that. So there's actually going to be a much higher level of involvement out of him, which arguably that was when some of his teams were actually doing the best, you know, back when he worked with the French roster with Kenny S and those guys back in 2015, 2014, 2016, all that stuff, you know, that's when they were doing phenomenal. And he was working with them. He was traveling with them. He was doing everything with them. Granted, there's a little bit more on his plate now. You know, he is going to help us put together the best team possible, you know, the best coaching staff possible and everything so that we can succeed. You know, he's really kind of all in on it. And, you know, that's kind of what I've been wanting, you know, for the past 2 years. You know, the past 2 years have not gone the way that we wanted to, of course, but it's really kind of almost been like a guinea pig experiment almost. I don't know. It's been really weird. But I've learned like so much through it. So yeah, I mean, we're of course, we're working on making things better. That's the goal.
What's the next match you guys have to play?
It would be, we had to decline the Cologne qual invite because of rumored Flashpoint dates. So it would have been Cologne, but it'll probably be Flashpoint. I don't know.
And you definitely don't want
Comfort,
to
you wouldn't have qualified anyway. I seen you playing online the last few months, mate. So we just saved you that one. You dodged a bullet on that one. Just say it was Flashpoint's fault.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking that off.
It's all right. Yeah, I'll take the hit for that one. Don't worry.
And you definitely don't want two players playing with.
You know, I mean,
100+
this is just the glory of Counter-Strike landscape. You know, it's happened. It's always happened forever that I've been a part of. You know, it's really interesting. However, like our team has been in different situations though with Envy, because I remember when I was a part of Renegades, we had to decline things to go play better things. You know, because we were just a higher ranked team, we were doing way better, you know, at that time. But in Envy, we've had to decline things simply because of timing issues, whether it's with visas, passports.
He didn't even complete the joke. I thought he was going to say the obvious joke, which is that now in Envy they have to decline worse things like Flashpoint. I thought you were going to do the obvious joke there. Come on, it's the Flashpoint channel. You're allowed to play.
No, but like, because I want to play them both. You know, that's the thing. I want to play them both. You know, but it's just not possible, and it sucks. You know, it really does suck. But yeah, you know, it's just, I don't know. It's just the way it is for now. You know, and I don't think there's too many people that are happy with it, but you
guys are also, James was saying that you guys are in a tough scenario in terms of location anyway, since you split across the world. So like it also would have made the qualify like 10 times harder, right?
Yes, and I'm really happy about the fact that, you know, a lot of my guys, you know, Legia, Mishu, and Kalix, you know, all of them are almost set on all of their P1 visas and stuff. So,
right.
you know, happily, it seems like we will be able to do, any kind of traveling that's necessary.
Okay.
I mean, we literally haven't, besides, the last time we played was like 3 months ago in like the same room. We've been split apart for 3 months. And even before that 3-month period, when we were playing Flashpoint Season 1 from online, we had Moose in Canada,
Yes.
and we were still split apart and we were not together playing in the office scenario. So, COVID and quarantine and all of these things, have really kind of put, a rock under our wheel. But like, man, I don't know. I'm really hoping for the best, and that some things, at least timing wise and logistical reasons and things like that start going our way a little bit. That way we can just at least get into the server, and try to accomplish, some of the goals that we have, because I feel like we've kind of been battered in that sense. And whereas a lot of other teams, they don't have any problems at least getting in the server together, where it's like we've faced those problems and it's like, man, come on. I just want to play, you know what I mean?
That's actually, by the way, as an aside, since people like transparency, that's actually one of the worst things that's happened to Flashpoint this year as a result of all the lockdown shit, is there are so many players that we just cannot get into the teams because most of the teams are from NA. So as a result, like if the player's European, we can't get a visa and send him there anyway. So unfortunately, it's also wrecked like the transfer market in that regard because the teams have the money, but they can't necessarily get the player into the country to play. So
also with you,
right now,
Thorin, we can't get you into the country. Like
some would say that's a positive for me right now. But,
it might be a positive for the players as well,
There you
depending
go,
on your
you know.
views.
Listen, some of us dodge those.
So for Flashpoint 2 teams, invites, qualifications, we will have, again, partner teams, qualifiers. We plan to give teams who were in Flashpoint last time, who are not partner teams, advantages in those qualifiers as well. So we're doing what we said we were going to do. Exactly. Looking for other questions here. If you guys have questions, please post them in the chat.
I'm gonna try to see if the camera will come on.
Oh
There you
my
go.
God, you did
It
it.
didn't work. It didn't work
Nice.
before. I had to restart like Discord and shit.
All right. Well,
All right,
move
you guys
guys
are looking
around
at
a
me
little.
through iPhone cam. So
Lovely. You nailed it. You nailed it.
It's pretty good.
is it good? Nice.
All right. So if you guys have questions, please post them in the chat and we will answer them as best we can. Still waiting for confirmed dates for Flashpoint 2, guys. Would it be possible to have a show match in Flashpoint 2 with a no pistol round, maybe 2,500 in start money or something along those lines? Would you guys be
If it was
interested in
like, here's the thing: if they mean not show matches in like not just like an all-star game of random play, if they mean get like 2 real teams and just test the format out of not having pistol rounds, that might be an interesting idea. If it was like 2 real squads that have played together and so it's just to show off the format, that might be interesting. I wouldn't be against that.
I feel like it's not even that interesting because pistol rounds aren't even that big of a deal anymore. Like, what's the real like impetus to take it out? I mean, every match is so close now because of the economy. Like, it's not like it's a big deal. I
It's like-
don't see the motivation.
The competitive approach to just rounds and like winning rounds in Counter-Strike has evolved to a point where it's like you could lose pistol round, save, and then save again and be down 3-0 and you still don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
just because of how the competitive like dynamic of how the game evolves throughout the gun rounds, just how it's treated, it's like pistol rounds don't matter anyway. But honestly, like, I don't know, it's like they're great for highlight reels.
Yeah.
They're great for the fans to watch, honestly. But I don't know. I don't really have too much of a thought on that. Like, I don't think it should be changed necessarily.
Let's see here. Thorin, I don't think you'd ever do this. If Valve offered you a job as their lead esports guy, would you leave Flashpoint?
I mean, as you say, like this is a pure hypothetical; it would never happen. No, I think it's almost certain I wouldn't do that.
Never?
No, never.
I think one of the
Why would you
interesting.
not do that? You would get to do exactly what you want with the game.
I do what I want right now.
Yeah, but with
You
CS,
mean to change the game? First of all, I don't think
Yeah.
you would. Unfortunately, like I get the feeling like Like, this is one thing people have never explained, right? You know, everyone just repeats over and over again. They've never been to Valve. They don't know this is true. Everyone just repeats over and over again. Valve's a company that has a flat structure, and so everyone just does whatever they want. Well, if that was true, then why doesn't someone just come in and make loads of changes? Never happens. Never happens ever. Seems like to me like they're like every other game dev. They have a development team who probably have a meeting and have a fucking plan and figure out, right, on this date we're going to do that. Like, they're just like every other company. That's just some stupid fucking, like, that's like if Aaron Sorkin wrote the TV version of what Valve software is. Not real. That's a fucking bunch of characters and storyline. Like, so I don't think that job actually exists, unfortunately, where you could be like the ice frog basically of CS and get to decide everything. That sounds cool, I agree. But even then, I'm not the person to do that, mate. Like, there's people out there who, there's not many people, admittedly, but like, for example, you've probably seen him on Reddit, that Sloth Squadron guy who breaks down like all the mechanics, how the guns work. So that guy seems to have a very good sense of how like you should balance the weapons and what the weapon's supposed to do and what's flawed and what works, like when spray should be inaccurate and when it isn't. Like, he actually taught me a lot of stuff when I talked to him about it, like that I didn't understand. For example, I'll give you a little tidbit here. One thing I always hated about CSGO compared to CS 1.6 is in CS 1.6, I don't know what you guys' background is, but in 1.6, the best pistol is the USP, the CT pistol. And the reason it's the best pistol is if you tap it, it is 100% accurate, essentially. So if you are just like Forrest, you can just destroy people on pistol rounds. Like, they can't do shit against you. That is not the same in CSGO, because in CSGO, you actively try to move and spam the gun in a way that makes the gun more inaccurate, but more accurate over a shorter span of time. Basically, if you try to do what I'm talking about in CS 1.6, fire one USPS shot and then let the recoil fully come down, it takes so long in CSGO that you're just going to get way less kills than if you just sort of take the inaccuracy of moving and just move and spam a bit. Like, so essentially on pistol rounds, we're all just agreeing to gamble. And it's just whoever if I gamble and I roll the 2 dice and I get the 7s, I got the 8 headshot pistol round. Brilliant, I win. But if I do the same exact thing and you're both moving and we're both just inaccurate and you headshot, then you win the round. So the problem I have is, like, he told me the reason you can't fix that basically is something about the mechanic would also change like how the rifles then work if you changed it in CSGO. So stuff like that's why it's actually like a super complicated topic, really. Like, it's not an exact, basically designing a game is like whack-a-mole. If you think you solved the problem over here, it's just going to pop up over here. So, like, I actually think that's a really complicated job to do as well. So it's not really like my sort of thing. I prefer to create content around stuff. I like to complain, but I don't want to actually be the person who has to make the fucking game. That sounds really hard.
I mean,
really
I was more thinking you'd get to at least direct like the like the tournament structure, right? Like where
right, that side.
Yeah, like, but I would more defer to Nifty on the pistol stuff because he's super good at it. I think precision is still rewarded with the USP in CS:GO.
I also think, Thorin, that one of the things about Valve as a company is that they typically have not liked their employees or people working for them being on-camera talent. Like, for example, in Dota, they had Statsman Bruno, who, when he was hired by Valve, no longer appeared on Dota broadcasts or the International, despite being, I think, one of the best like desk analysts that Dota's ever had, right? So I think it would potentially preclude you from doing the things that you do.
That's why I wouldn't do it anyway, personally, because I'll stop doing things I like doing, which is what I do in my life now. If it could do some side job, like, I actually agree the James angle's not bad. If it was just like you were the guy who decided the esports circuit for CS, they probably should have people from my position or experience as the people giving them advice for that. But even then, it depends on how much control you get, really. If you got to properly design it, maybe it'd be cool. It's like a 1 year, 2 year project or something,
Yeah, I feel like the scene now, because of COVID and how the travel restrictions are, it kind of mirrors like the 1.6 scene, right? Where there wouldn't be too much intermingling between Europe and the US or just continental divides, right? In the off season, there'd maybe be like one big tournament a year or a few. So, I mean, what do you think about that, like, compared to the past?
That's actually been one of the problems in trying to watch games now, is people don't get it, but this is just like going back 15 years or whatever, or 16 years. And especially if you weren't the top teams with the big sponsorships to attend the LANs, like, even if you were good enough, you couldn't go to the LAN in Europe. The problem is, though, because that's where we began at the time, it just seemed cool that there was more international tournaments. So you could handle like the everyday being the online Cal match. The problem I feel like now is, because we've spent the last 5 years at least all complaining about oversaturation, too many tournaments. Like everyone just went from complaining, like, I don't want to see Astralis versus Team Liquid every week. It's like, well, good luck. You get to watch Triumph versus Team Liquid every week now, dumb motherfucker. Like, enjoy that. Like, the problem is when you have to go, like, it's one thing to complain about having too much caviar. If you then have to go straight to the McDonald's nuggets, the drop-off's a bit harsh on that one. Drop-off is a bit harsh, you know. If you start at the nuggets, you can go up, but the other way around doesn't work, I've noticed.
Jesus.
I don't know. How can you really complain though about like what opponents you're watching? Like, honestly, man, most players now, most teams are like they play up to a certain level of Counter-Strike. You know, like there isn't really anyone who's just totally shat the bed. You know, like I don't know. You can still lose
I
to
actually
a
agree with
team,
that.
but like you still play like good CS. So it's like if you're a fan of Counter-Strike and watching professional Counter-Strike, then you're gonna enjoy most games they're on. Dude, even out of like tier 4 European teams who are a lot of times even better than like tier 2 NA teams, you know, like I'd be watching some of these teams like, holy fuck, you know what I mean? Like this would be a crazy game if we played
Thing is,
against
though, I want to ask you about this
But-
actually, though, because I actually think that is the part of the angle that doesn't work, is that's the teams playing that's the issue. To me, it's just the online aspect. Like, I tell you what, the thing I've learned from the COVID era is, holy fuck, I would watch the shit out of a DreamHack Open LAN right now. I don't even care if it's not the best teams, dude. I used to only watch like the highlight games of those ones, or if I was studying a team. I would watch the whole thing now. Just to watch a LAN would be amazing.
Thorin's a man wandering in the desert, dying of thirst, looking for that LAN oasis at the moment.
Whereas, like,
He'll
that's
take
the
anything.
problem.
He's desperate.
Dude,
I
you
can't
can
wait to
literally
make tweets about these tier 4 shit teams.
No, but that's the difference. What I have learned is, unfortunately, even the two best teams in the world, if it's online, just doesn't match up to even a tier 2 LAN. It just doesn't
But
feel
how
the
do you
same.
how do you see that though? Do you actually see it in what they're doing? Like, does it look like less spirited play? Like, how do you actually know that that's measurable or that that's happening? Like, do you feel that they like don't care as much?
Like,
Or
if
what
LeBron
exactly?
James plays an NBA game, right? So he plays on the planet Earth, right, with Earth's atmosphere. Imagine he played the game on the moon and couldn't run as fast. Well, that's literally what ping is.
Yeah, I guess I
You
can
can't
see what you're
control
saying.
it. You know, like I agree with you. Sometimes it looks similar, but like, for example, even the things aren't in the server, the gravitas of the match, how much it means, the fact you know they're on a big stage, like that stuff somehow it does play in the back of your mind. Like it's how you hype yourself up, isn't it? Like, let's face it, the teams that play in the Super Bowl could, in theory, have played in the regular season in a random one-off game, but it'll never mean the same in that game, will it? Like, it's just a regular season game. So that's my problem. Is like, you're right. Some of it's my pre-framing of how I'm going into the match to watch it. But like, that's also part of what I'm referring to. When you have a LAN, you get that whole, it's like a movie. You get like the beginning, the middle, the end. You get all the acts. You get the trailers. It's like there's an order to it that's satisfying. Like, I like to start in the group stage with the teams and then know that, like, after one day, some of them are out. And then, this team's a dark horse coming through. Let's see where they are in 2 days, though. Will they make the semi-final? I like even the framing of how the story goes, to me, is really cool. Because another thing I've not liked about the online era is these tournaments are so bloated with the format. It's like, dude, this tournament's running like almost like Flashpoint format for just like a one-off 1 week tournament. It's like, there's too many matches. Like, every tournament every week can't be like a massive double elimination best of 3 bracket. That's too many games.
I mean, I definitely agree with you. Like, just watching the games and prepping for it, it's like just the last few months have been one big round robin of playing the same teams all the time. And it's just like, it must be crazy. Like, it must be really frustrating for you, right, Noah? Like, just preparing for the same thing, like, time after.
Put it this way, when I did a show with, it was when I did Counterpoints with Zeus. I looked up, right, because he's obviously just joined Evil Genius a few months ago. I looked up and they're on like a 10-game winning streak at the time on Inferno. The 10 games were all against 4 teams. It was just all against Genji, Team Liquid, fucking Furia, and I can't remember the fourth one. Like, it was just like, dude, their 10-game winning streak was just 4 teams. Like, they're already playing literally those 4 teams over and over and over again in a million series, one after another. Like, you know, it's not even an exaggeration. You really are playing the same exact team.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's really interesting. I mean, like when we were playing Flashpoint from online, and obviously it would have been different if there was no COVID and we would have been playing in the studio. We at some point we were playing for 100 days straight. Like we had one day off maybe, and that was like to fly from LA to Dallas. And because there was like consistent matches and other qualifiers for other things
I'm
mixed
sure the
in,
major qualifiers and stuff. Yeah.
100 days straight. And actually by the end of the 100 days, when like our guys actually had to leave and go back home, you know, we actually started like finding some good form, and like we felt comfortable, and like chemistry was being built, and we had some great momentum like on our side. So it's like, as a player, when you're a team who's not like one of the best teams in the world, you like that feeling. It takes a lot to get there, you know, but when you're one of the best teams in the world, and then you're just playing and you're playing and you're someone, and here's the hardest thing that like a Liquid player has to deal with in this online era, is that first they have to get past their ego. Look at all the things that they've accomplished on LAN and against much better players. So
Sure.
now they have to actually be professional and treat their job the same way, you know, playing against lesser skilled opponents, you know, from online with ping difference and all these different things, right? Which I know Liquid players are very particular about. You know, like
Yeah.
Elige notices every minor difference, you know, in like everything technological, you know. And same with Nitro, same with Stu, like all these guys, like they know so many things, and they focus on so many things about the game that makes them like as great as they are. You know, but it's like it's really hard to get past. So first they have to get past themselves, and then on top of that, you know, practicing. And NA practice is honestly so rough, man. It's so rough because in EU, you can, when you're boot camping in EU or something, you can practice against some like ESCA intermediate EU team, and they're actually good practice. Like they're actually good fucking practice, and it's so, it makes no sense, bro. It makes no sense. It's so weird.
It's really easy.
Yeah, they use prac.com, which is way more simple. We still use Skype. I don't even know what Skype is anymore. Like we still use Skype. Like why are we using Skype? I asked one of our previous coaches, Ely. I was like, yo, can we like maybe influence, like maybe get like a Discord group at least? Like, can we use something better? But yeah, I don't know, man. It's the online era. It requires a lot of mental toughness out of everybody. It really does. But even when you're traveling to lands, you know, like you have to. That's why like many players who like, because you can tell when a player, like just physically, you can tell like someone might be bigger, but they could still be healthy. But like, but players have to live the healthiest lifestyles that they can. They have to exercise. They have to eat right, because when you are living that crazy schedule, like Astralis travel or Liquid travel, or you know, when these lands are going on, dude, you're gonna get toasted, man, if you're not like focusing on yourself and taking care of yourself physically and mentally. I mean, it's just so draining. You know, I went through that period with Renegades. It was one of the things that pushed me off. And like I didn't want to do this anymore because it was just so demanding. I was so unhappy, you know. And granted, I, you know, my competitive level took a hit, but I gained so much in return. I would do the same thing 100 times over. It's different.
Yeah, you live and you learn. I mean, the health is a big thing of it. If you can't focus correctly, you're definitely not going to play well, and you're also not going to treat your teammates well too, because you're probably going to have like a shorter temper, right? Like, I mean, it affects so many different things.
Yeah, something as simple as conversation. You know, if you just need to have a basic conversation with your teammate about how to play a bomb site sooner, if one of you is on a short fuse, you're all fucked. That's really what it is. You know, you're all fucked. So it's just, yeah, I don't know. You know, it's something that I've preached to my team, you know, as much as possible. And I try to lead by example as much as possible. And I just hope that everyone grabs on, you know. But I don't know. I think it'll become more of a thing, but it'll take some years.
Here's an interesting question. What does the scene look like if there are no lands for the next 9 months? Will the sponsorships dry up? So, I mean, esports viewership is kind of up across the board right now, so I don't really see the sponsorship angle drying up even without any lands. And to answer the
based on what I just said there, the fact that the LAN has more games means probably there's no problem for the sponsor. He gets more exposure, if anything.
And as for, like, if there aren't lands for 9 months, I think it's extremely unlikely that there will not be lands over the course of the next 9 months. And the reason behind that is that people are going to figure out how to run these things safely, just like we are seeing with the NBA bubble right now. Like, basically, professional sports and esports are all trying to, everybody's learning from each other, and we're all trying to figure out how we can operate these events safely. And also potentially in countries that might require 2-week quarantines or whatever. But once you go through that process, so not to say that we would run Flashpoint in Korea, but because there is no Counter-Strike scene there, right? And the Asian time zone is super weird for Counter-Strike. But, for example, Korea is a country where when you go there, the government mandates that you spend 2 weeks in quarantine, but the country is basically open now as a result of that. And so you could theoretically run LANs in Korea in a safe fashion at the moment. So other countries like that, if that were to occur, I think that people will just figure out ways in which they can run LAN events. So I don't think it's probably realistic to say that we won't have LANs for 9 months. It's just a matter of who is going to be able to operate them in a way that is safe. And certainly we're looking at that as part of Flashpoint, right? We are certainly looking at that.
Do you mean LANs with like LANs that are going to have like live spectators somehow?
I doubt that will happen.
Okay, so that's what I was saying. So all the LANs are going to look like a backroom poker show. That's what it's going to look like.
Well, no, I mean, it's like what Flashpoint would have been, right? Like we had a LAN with a nice studio, but like no
private.
audience. Like we weren't planning to have an audience for that. But do I think stadium events are probably out? Yeah, that's probably out in the short term, right? Within the next 6-9 months.
I'd give it 6 to 9 months, which seems about right. Yeah.
But
I mean, it's probably this is more like your and Thorin's field about how to do it, but there's probably going to need to be more creative like content, right? You want to bring more stuff to the viewer in addition to the game if you are able to bring the players co-located, right? Because the first thing is to get all the players in the same place so you can have the level playing field and the gravitas of the match, like Thorin says. But then you also want to somehow reinvent the content, right, to make it that much more interesting because you're losing the stadium spectator event feature. One of the things I was thinking about, though, is going to be interesting. It's like a concept in biology called adaptive radiation. Is there's going to probably be like metas, like there's going to be a meta that happens in Europe and a meta that happens in NA, right? Because people aren't going to be playing each other as often. So I'm going to be really interested to see the first time that EU and NA teams play against each other again. Like I think it'll make the game more interesting to watch because after Astralis was so dominant for so long, everyone was trying to like be super tactical and everyone's gameplay style was everyone's trying to be all defaulty and super technical, right? So everyone was playing similar to each other, or at least trying to be. And I think there's going to be more like actual segmentation in how people play again. And I'm really interested to see that once LAN play happens again.
Yeah, I have a content idea for you guys, by the way, for Flashpoint.
Everyone has content ideas.
Wouldn't it be cool if you had maybe a player? So I'm going to just suggest myself, right, for Flashpoint. And basically you sit, like I'd say I sit in a room with one other player from another team, right? And you could do many episodes of this. And basically it's the idea behind it is like getting to know that player on a deeper level, not just the surfacey stuff that these players present themselves as all the time. Like, yes, I play for Gambit Youngsters, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I play AWP, like, let's get like we can almost like challenge them sort of.
So what we do is it's me, Nifty, and a player.
So that's
what we do is we're locked into a room for 1 week, and on the first 3 days we don't eat anything. It's a fast. We're purifying our body. Then the heavy psychedelics come in.
Yep.
Once we get deep into that space, literally we film it all. Like we're filmed like this is how close it is, and then his angle's at the reverse angle, and all you see is the back and forwards, and we're just talking like, what do you think about life? You think God's real? It's God real? I think God's real. What about you? Like, we just do that, and then we just edit the best section.
And we'll film it like an Ingmar Bergman movie, so it's super intense, and we'll.
and it's like whoever's whoever's not comfortable, it's like that's okay.
Has to leave the room. And then another one enters. It's like WWE. It's like the Royal Rumble where one person's walking and they leave. It's like a bell goes, ding, ding, ding. Coaster's coming, and then he just runs in, and then he's in the fucking room next.
Coaster, what's your greatest fear in life? You know what I mean? And then
Kenny would be the last one that would want to do that. I can tell you that much.
Well, the thing is, in the end, spoiler, in the end, Coaster's actually the only one who wins season 1 because he's been through so much darkness for the last 5 years of his career that no one can break him. He's seen it all. He's like a fucking Nam veteran, just 1,000-yard stare. He's like, listen, dude, I've seen people to get flamethrowed alive.
I know. Maybe you guys know this. What's one of the biggest thing that is like draws in viewership for content? It's like people love relatability. Why do people watch streamers? They love relatability. It's like if you can learn more about so many of these players that only do post game interviews and say, yeah, we just knew that hitting the A site was going to be sick. But
I didn't go in depth about the idea. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Because for me, what you'd need to do though is, like, jokes aside, you would have to make it basically where however long the session was, you don't obviously film the whole thing from minute 0 to the end. You'd take the highlights of the conversation, because if you're going to get deep, like you're saying, you're going to have to basically have a few hours and have a chance to really talk around things until you get to the good shit, right? I think it's not a bad idea though. Basically like a Joe Rogan podcast, but just with players, right?
You'd probably need one of the players to like mediate it, right? Because like what if both players like kind of don't want to do it? It'd be super boring. So you need Nifty in the room all the time, or Monty always in the room, like try to lead the conversation.
I mean, I'm not averse to doing that, but I do, player profiles and doing more in-depth stuff is definitely something that we aim to do in general. So definitely agree with you there, Nifty. I think it's an interesting idea about how to execute it. I also think that if you get the right players, player roundtables can be really interesting as well.
Dude, imagine 8 players, all from different teams, playing poker.
Nifty, is this are you gonna run Envy's content division once you're once you retire?
Maybe this is why he's in Envy. Maybe he won a really high stakes game of poker against Hastro, and at the end, instead of like in the old West, you'd bet your wife or something. Hastro just bet like lifetime status in Envy because he didn't have the money. Obviously Nifty fucking sneaked him, had the little card up his pocket. He always wins. Now we go. Now we figured out the whole secret of his career.
I'm done.
There we go.
All right. Well, I think that should wrap it up for us today, guys. We're at the end of our hour. Thorin's been on a bazillion shows and calls already today, so we'll give him a little bit of a break. Any parting words, James or Nifty, as we conclude this Flashpoint Q&A?
Just go ahead. Thanks for having me on. I enjoy chatting with y'all.
Have you been enjoying your player break?
I have actually. Sometimes you struggle with it just because it's like, oh man, but I'm so used to playing, like practicing with my team 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. So sometimes it comes as a little bit of a shock, and everyone appreciates it in that like first week. But once you get past the first week, you're like, shit, like, like what should I do? Maybe play some other games or something. But I've taken, I think, great notice of the time that I've had off, recently, and I've tried a lot of new things and just developing different areas of my life and just myself in general. So I'm very happy for it, but I'm also very excited to like get back to playing, especially when we figure out our roster changes and we move on to competitions such as Flashpoint and stuff. So I'm super looking forward to it, and I love everything that we're doing here at Envy. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for having me too. I'm excited to watch some CS games because definitely been missing it. So.
Indeed.
I'd just like to leave this one parting message, which is that for anyone out there who believes that they have strong morals and principles and that they live in an ethical manner, I would just say, how are you watching this episode? On a computer? Maybe you're watching on a cell phone. Maybe just look into how those devices are made and the minerals that are absolutely essential and where they're sourced from the world and how. Otherwise, you might just be a hypocritical piece of shit.
Aren't we all? On that note,
we all are, by the way.
Yeah, we all are. Anyway.
We all are. The end. Bye.
The end. Goodbye.